Normally the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best till into the next world.
And welcome into a live best ball draft. Boy, it's been a minute since I've been doing a best ball draft, but this is the time. We are in its best ball season, kicking off with some playoff best ball tournaments. And if you haven't jumped into Drafters Fantasy, this is your chance. Use the promo code BEST, BEST, for a $20 first-time deposit bonus on Drafters Fantasy. They have, in particular, 2 GPP tournaments available, a $3 NFL Playoffs Mini Best Ball Championship and a $20 NFL Playoffs Best Ball Championship with $30K going to first. $5K goes to the winner of the $3 NFL Playoffs Mini Best Ball Championship round. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And there are only 9,336 possible entrants in this tournament. There's already over 5,000 filled up ever since the playoffs have been filled. It's go time. It is playoff best ball time. So I want to get in on drafting some of these. They've gone pretty fast. It's only a 6-person draft. And I want to talk about a little bit about the rules and scoring and everything as we get into here. So, of course, you want to go to Drafters Fantasy and log in there. Okay, so roster and scoring. So you start for the best ball, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. Typical scoring for quarterbacks, -2 for interceptions, a 4-point passing touchdown. Scoring for those who are new, still 1/10 of a point for every rushing yard or receiving yard. It is full point PPR. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to be bumping up your PPR players. 6 points for receiving and rushing touchdowns, -2 for fumbles lost, etc. So there we go. We're going to get going here very shortly. As you can tell, almost 5,100 entrants. This is my second one today. And one of the keys, one of the guiding lights in mind is that I want to be heavy on two types of plays. I want to be heavy on half AFC, half NFC. Okay. Because you want to maximize the amount of points that are going to accumulate throughout this playoff championship best ball tournament. But the second is I want to be targeting players particular that I think are going to be lasting more than 1 round. Because if they last more than 1 round, well, of course, they're going to be lasting 2, and there's a chance that they'll get even higher, into that 3rd round. They'll play a 3rd game or they'll play in the Super Bowl. So that's what I want to be keeping in mind. And there are 4 teams that really stick out to me that have, I think, the best chance of doing so. So I've been drafting a lot of these players. I think San Francisco, much to my chagrin, much to Billy Muzio's joy, San Francisco, I think, has a good chance of passing by Seattle. So they're going to play 2 games. So that means heavier on Kittle, heavier on Debo, heavier on Ayuk. I also think the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they're going to get the bye, if you can hold on for that 1 week, maybe you pair, some of the Eagles early with a couple of Dallas or Tampa Bay players late. So that's 2. So the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. And then the other side, Buffalo and Cincinnati. Now, naturally, all of these types of players, because many people who are in these rooms recognize this as well, they're going to be highly sought after. So, you may want to be sprinkling in a couple contrary plays here and there, but you don't want to out galaxy brain yourself. You do want to be stacking, though, because, for instance, if you need a Quez Watkins or you need a Khalil Shakir, right, those are going to be some late plays that may be eyebrow raising or interesting here. Some upside plays, a Juwan Jennings, right? These are players who do play significant snaps, but can get left behind. Or if there are significant injuries, that they're going to step up into major roles. So those are players that I'm going to be keeping in mind. Of course, I'm going to be seeing if I can get as much of Cincinnati, Buffalo, Seattle, or San Francisco, and Philadelphia from this, because frankly, I think Dallas is in a lot of trouble, and so is Tampa Bay. I don't think they're going to last. One of those teams is going to play 2 games. So is it going to be Dallas or Tampa Bay? And I think that the line is -3 for Dallas, -2.5. I was seeing different lines here in the last couple of days, so I'm hesitant to be targeting Dallas or Tampa. You don't want to be taking zeros, but maybe that's the type of team that you want to be going after. So just a few thoughts before we jump into this live draft of the teams that I want to be going after, because of the upside that those particular players offer, but also because of I envision those teams are probably going to be making it pretty far into the dance, right? If it's Buffalo versus Philadelphia, you're going to want those players. So let's jump on in. Let's get into it. We're going to join, and we're going to join. There we go. Starting in 2 minutes. We were the last one. Excellent. We are going to draft. This is always fun. Okay. I am ready to draft. And for those who are not familiar with Drafters Fantasy, you can adjust some of the settings, right? You can make it dark mode, light mode. Obviously this is a 6-person draft, but during the off season, during the summer, they'll have pre-draft best ball tournaments. They will also have, post-draft. They'll have their $20 tournament. And so this is going to be a lot of fun getting into this. And of course, looking at who's going to be scoring the most points. Right. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey are at the top there. But Jalen Hurts, there's some eyebrow raises of, did he do enough for the Eagles to be comfortable with his passing and throwing and even rushing? That's going to be some questions for me. I do want Jalen Hurts, but I am picking 6th. And it looks like, Jalen Hurts might not be available to me. But I am double tapping here. And starting 2 wide receivers would be very, very interesting to me, because you have to start 2, and you pick, in 12 rounds, you're starting a quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers, and a tight end, right? So 5 of your 12 are going to be starting at any one point, and it drops off very, very quickly. All right, and welcome into those who are just tuning in. If you haven't drafted on Drafters before, go to drafters.com and use the promo code BEST, BEST, and that'll support me, but also it'll get you into these Drafters Best Ball playoff tournaments. Okay, a couple seconds left, and we're going to strategize here, see what comes, let it come to us, but also, I was able to hit on some Cincinnati, Buffalo, San Francisco, and Philadelphia players earlier this evening. And so we'll see which players actually do come to me in this round. Yeah, and not being afraid to, you might take 15 points in round 1, but then the team is eliminated, and so the Lamar Jacksons of the world are really, really risky. We don't even know if he's going to play, much less if the Ravens are going to get past Cincinnati. That would be a tough call. So we do like his upside, but it does look like, Chase and Burrow getting that stack is going to be really beautiful. We're going to go Chase, and then we're going to go Burrow. So I'm going to secure that Cincinnati stack, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I got the Bengals, and now I can focus We'll see who comes back around in what, 9 picks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're looking at like Joe Mixon and Debo Samuel. Those are some players that I'd be interested in. Dallas Goedert at tight end might be a leverage play in the PPR realm. Kelsey and Kittle go off to the same team. That seems extremely suboptimal, right? Like if you're playing that way, you're banking on George Kittle being your tight end or your flex play. And as we know, tight ends typically have a difficult time getting into accessing even like top 18 or top 15. Oh man, there's some love for Brock Purdy as of late. I saw him go as the 17th pick overall in this draft. We see him as the 11th pick overall. I mean, you're getting points, but uh, is Brock Purdy the fifth best quarterback? I don't know if that's true. Yeah, hop in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking here, because yeah, there we go. Serendipity Trick Shots, what's up? Saying hi to you. I'm going to be on the clock here in a moment. Yeah, Serendipity Trick Shots, if you haven't jumped on Drafters, hop on here. This is a lot of fun. Let's see. Debo goes off. T. Higgins goes off. Joe Mixon goes off. We're looking at, Devonta Smith, possibly. Dallas Goedert, possibly. With Kittle and Kelsey off the board, Goddard here looks really nice, but then also Devonta Smith, right? I secure that second. I secure that second wide receiver, and I know they're not going to be playing, so I am going to have to keep in mind that I'm going to take a 0 at tight end unless I get a late tight end pickup. So I'll need to pick a tight end that's going to play here in the first round, and probably a cheap one. So I don't know if like Gerald Everett might be a late consideration here. Hayden Hurst might be a late consideration. Hawkinson probably, goes off, but that's a fine plug and play that I'm guaranteeing 2 rounds there. So Cincinnati, Philadelphia are my 2 pretty heavy hitters right now. And I wouldn't mind taking like a CD Lamb here to plug in for Devonta Smith that first round. Dawson Knox goes off. There's a clear stack in team 1 of Allen, Diggs, and then Knox, and then also Singletary. So there's a lot of Buffalo happening in that lineup. And Philadelphia as well, sniping me on Sanders, I suppose. Okay. Wow, yeah, CD Lamb hanging out right there. But are there any other values of teams that would be, I anticipate, moving forward? And really don't see a lot of values from that at this point. Maybe Mike Evans, but it looks like Evans is significantly questionable. Yeah, let's go CD Lamb. Let's draft some CD Lamb. His ADP is pick 11. So to get him at what? Pick 30? That's nice. And then, Hawkinson here. That feels really nice because Goddard and Smith are going to be playing that second round no matter what. And then I plugged in Hawkinson and Lamb for my Smith and Goddard outs. So I can still go with Philadelphia and Cincinnati. This path still makes sense for me. Okay. And then even if Dallas beats Philadelphia or beats Tampa Bay, then I get 2 games out of Lamb, and same thing with, Minnesota. If they beat the Giants, then I get a pretty nice little bit there as well. So maybe we harp on a little bit more Minnesota stacking. Okay. Especially with, did they get home field advantage? I think they got home field advantage. Nevertheless, I'm pleased with how this is shaping up right now. Yeah, it looks like not being afraid to plug in when you need some bye week fill-ins. I mean, you can throw the Chiefs in for the same reason as the Philadelphia Eagles, but I just prefer the Eagles if you're going to pick one team that's going to be on a bye. You know that I feel like there's more ups than some of the players there. Okay, so we've got Burrow, and let's just get our. We need a running back here, and we do need a running back. I'm running low on running backs. Baltimore. Yeah, let's go with Dobbins there. And then also, we're going to hit on. Yeah, let's go Barkley. We're going to take some risks at running back there because Dobbins may not make it, but Barkley probably does. Breathing fantasy football, literally yo-yo man, what's up? Just noticed you live. Thanks. Appreciate it. Oh, it is refreshing for me. Yeah, thanks for hopping in. The Packers, man, oh man, talk about getting frustrated last night. I live a couple minutes outside of Detroit, and it was hard to come into work today. Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit on some of those later running backs. So I like Gainwell. I like Elijah Mitchell. Those are some players, and Samaje Perine. Those are some running backs that I don't mind taking some shots on here. Yeah, I do not mind taking late shots on those players. I'm all set at tight end. I don't need any more tight ends. At wide receiver, I'm probably going to need to hit on a little bit more of the wide receiver. And maybe I hedge. Oh, Godwin goes off, but maybe I hedge between Evans and CD Lamb because Evans and CD Lamb are one of those two wide receivers are going to be coming back to play along with Devonta Smith in that game. So I think that could work out if Evans comes back to me. Okay. Okay. Man, oh man, some of these drafters will take a long time. Some of them do not. All right, so Mike Evans there. I mean, you have to like Chase, Smith, Lamb, and Evans from a player perspective, but also, I'm banking on Cincinnati probably going pretty far. We also need, oh man, Samaje Perine did go off here. That's frustrating. So we're going to go with Gainwell here at the running back spot. I've got Dobbins and Barkley and Gainwell. I'm hoping that Gainwell would continue. He was a PPR disappointment, frankly, this year. I had high hopes for him coming into year 2 and just didn't materialize. Frankly, Miles Sanders just went berserk. But as a handcuff, you could see Kenneth Gainwell being used pretty regularly. Bringing fantasy football, literally, you want to build a starting roster at least for Super Bowl in mind with these 4-week whole pod tourneys. What's your thoughts? You want to at least be able to craft a narrative is how I think about it. And what is the narrative? I think the only mistake pick so far in this is J.K. Dobbins, right? That's contrary to my Chase and Burrow. So I'm going to probably have to get some more of the running back. So I keep making one bad pick per draft. And I think that was it. I was just so tantalized, but yes, you need to talk yourself into a narrative. If this happens, then this also happens. And this will help me because blah, 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 blah. You can't just go in and say, well, I like this player, or this is, someone that I think could hit, or picking players that are contrary to each other. The reason why I picked Evans and CD Lamb is I know one of them is going to get through and they're going to play Devonta Smith. So I've got two of those three playing 2 games. So, all right. And I need running back. And if I'm falling into the Mike Evans could be the one, then also like maybe I just hedge with like a Malik Davis, right? If someone goes down, we could see that happening. It's just that there's not a lot of options here. Yeah, we're going to go Malik Davis. Okay, so it's not very wide receiver heavy, but with all those running backs, you could see a narrative playing out where I've got Joe Burrow, at my quarterback spot, and then Gainwell and Chase and Goddard, right? And then also Devonta Smith in the championship. So maybe I don't get full points, but you do need to talk yourself into a narrative, frankly, because if you don't, or you have conflicting narratives, then that's going to be, problematic. So those are just some of the things that I'm thinking through. You want to, of course, pick some of the best teams that you believe are going to advance, but you also don't want to pick contrary picks like that conflict with a narrative. Like if one team wins, then it eliminates the other. It's just not going to work out. So yes. And narrative, of course, indeed. So that was a lot of fun. It was a short little draft. Appreciate all of you tuning in. Let's see. Hedge is not horrible, but definitely not comfy in decision making. Yeah, it's true. But how many teams are going to have Lamb and Evans on the same, are going to be picking between both of them, right? There's also something to be said for being unique and getting those to pass through. Because maybe I'm one of the teams that does have, Malik Davis and CD Lamb in it, facing off against Burrow, and Chase there. So we'll see where it gets to, but it's tough too because of all the consolidated players. You're only picking from a certain amount, and to even get 6 solid teams out of it, as I get better at this too, I'll think, this could work. I think the only real mistake pick here was J.K. Dobbins, in the 7th round. But really looking back at the draft, right, it comes back around J.K. Dobbins. Maybe I should have taken Cousins to stack with Hawkinson. That's a possibility. Or gone with Eli Mitchell. But maybe Mitchell is the running back you want if McCaffrey goes down in week 1, right? What is the narrative that you're going to talk yourself into here? So we'll see how it goes. This was a lot of fun, though. It's good getting back in the best ball streets. And if you liked Drafters, make sure you use the promo code BEST, BEST, and that'll give you $20 for a first-time deposit bonus. So it's lots of fun. It's lots of fun. Breathing fantasy football, literally, if I'm taking 5 running backs, I'd like to see a Cincinnati running back on that team. Yeah. I mean, maybe we take a really late shot on like a Chris Evans if you're open for that. But P. Ryan has just been going earlier and earlier than what I was anticipating in this round. I mean, round 9, are we going to take like 1 round of Saquon, or are we going to hedge that, Samaje Perine is going to make it into multiple rounds? Like Saquon, the Giants could knock off the Minnesota Vikings, and then we're talking about, multiple rounds of Saquon Barkley versus Samaje Perine, who really doesn't get a lot of work behind Joe Mixon. I mean, he's sprinkled in, but it's clear that Mixon is the RB1. So there are a lot of running backs. I think my one mistake here was the Dobbins pick. So nevertheless, it was a lot of fun still. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I had just an itch, and I've been doing some research on my spreadsheets, and I'm almost done with it. I definitely want to get into sharing that with y'all because it's some good stuff, and I'm learning a lot. I developed a Bestball value rating. This is unique to me. And it's okay, fine. You know, I've got the itch. I'll just tell you. The Bestball value rating looks at the percent rate at which a particular player met the top 5 running backs, for instance, met top 5 running back, met top 10, and met the flex requirement for a winning Bestball team. So if you watch my previous video, I talked to my previous live stream where I talked about reverse engineering the Bestball Mania 3 winner, King Capital's team. He scored the most points over the course of the season, which is the goal. We want to score the most points, and Bestball takes the best scores, right? So we want to look at the players who are most likely to hit the nuts, frankly, right? And you would think the best players are the best ones to hit the nuts. But it's also like, what team are they on? What game script is it? What pace of play is it? And so I took those rates from just this year, and later on I'll be doing research on multiple years, year over year research as well. That's later on. But now that all of the regular season games are over, I can tell you who the top players to have the highest rate of a top 5, for instance, running back week would be. And it might surprise you, maybe it not. The top running back to have a top 5 running back percentage. So the rate at which they get, I think it's 23 fantasy points in half PPR. Derrick Henry, number 1, 31.4% of the time this year. And then McCaffrey was second with 24.3. Eckler was third with 24.2% of the time, getting to that top 5 running back. And then Josh Jacobs at 22.6. So it's a clear tier of Henry, and then McCaffrey, Eckler, Jacobs in that second tier. And then Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones round out the top 10. Okay. Surprisingly, the highest rookie at this rate was Kenneth Walker, and he was running back 14. Okay. And this was rate at which the running backs got a top 5 week. So Kenneth Walker was 14th. Jerick McKinnon was 13th. Okay. McKinnon came on very, very strong. But McKinnon did not come in strong in the Bestball value rating. So I said he was 13th or 14th. McKinnon was all the way down to running back 34 in my Bestball ranking or Bestball value rating. Mostly because he didn't contribute much outside of those couple spike weeks. Outside of those 10% top 5 weeks during the regular season, his other top 10 and flex weeks where he would fit into your starting lineup ended up totaling only about 10% as well. So McKinnon was not as valuable, like all weeks being equal, which we know all weeks are not equal. Weeks 15, 16, 17 are the most valuable. But if we're taking it from a pure percentage standpoint, Jerick McKinnon, while significantly outproducing his ADP, was not as big of a contributor as, for instance, like David Montgomery. Montgomery was almost 30% of the time a flex play. which you're thinking to yourself, 30% of the time of flex play. Yeah, 30% plus another 9% as a top 10 running back. So 35 to 40% of the time, David Montgomery was making your best ball lineup, which is really not bad. Like Jamal Williams was at about 40%. Like these running backs, yeah, they're boom, they're bust, but they are less boom bust than some of the wide receivers. The wide receiver data is very, very interesting. If you'll indulge me, I mean, y'all will be on anyways and listen to the content. So let me tell you about the wide receivers for this year. The top wide receivers of rates at which they hit top 5 for a week. Justin Jefferson, 48% of the time, was a top 5 wide receiver. And I defined a top 5 wide receiver as a wide receiver in half PPR with scoring 22.7 fantasy points. Justin Jefferson did that 48% of the time. The next closest, Devontae Adams at 37.8%, is a clear tier break. It's Jefferson and then everyone else. Jefferson and then Adams at 37.8. And then another tier break. Tyreek Hill at 28.9, Jamar Chase at 28.8, and Cooper Kupp at 28.1. At rates at which those players got 22.7 fantasy points. Let me share this tab instead, and then I'll zoom in. Yeah? Yeah? Why not? Why not? I'm not going to be selfish. Let's do it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there we go. Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown as number 6? Number 6. Behind Kupp, but ahead of Waddle, ahead of A.J. Brown, ahead of Christian Watson. Now, Christian Watson is the highest rookie on this list. Christian Watson, 11.7% of the time, he was a top 5 wide receiver. And then if he wasn't a top 5 wide receiver, he was still 15% of the time a top 10 wide receiver. But then he didn't do much in the flex. He was pretty much boom or bust. He was a top 10 wide receiver or better, like 28% of the time, almost 28% of the time. But outside of top 10, right, he was a top 18, between that 10 and 18, only 3% of the time. And then between 18, so scoring 15.2 fantasy points and then 12.5 fantasy points, only 2% of the time. So Christian Watson, he either hit or missed this year. And that's one of the reasons why I want to be, very interested in drafting some Christian Watson. He's going to have these big boom games. Watson had a higher rate of top 5 wide receiver weeks than Stephon Diggs or CeeDee Lamb or Devonta Smith or Mike Evans or Amari Cooper. Garrett Wilson was second with 8.3%. Okay. And that's among rookies. Now, let's get to the best ball value rating. The ball value rating. I'm going to patent this and put it into a box or something because this is really cool. So the cool thing is that the best ball value rating takes into account the importance of getting a top 5 wide receiver week. So a top 5 wide receiver typically gets, as I said, 22.7 fantasy points. A top 10 wide receiver, 19 fantasy points. A top 18 wide receiver, 15.2 fantasy points, and a flex play. A flex play making your flex lineup 12.5 fantasy points. So I sum producted those to what kind of contribution, what kind of value does that bring to your best ball lineup? How important is it that you get a top 5 wide receiver and fill that spot? Well, this was the value, 15.33, and compare that to the importance of getting a flex, 8.33. Nearly double. Of course, it's twice as important for you to get your top 5 wide receiver and fill that spot than it is to fill in with a flex, to prioritize a flex. So what does this mean for best ball? One of the things is that as we are trying to fill in the flex, there are just so many players who regularly can do that. So if you're prioritizing a player who hits the flex all the time, but doesn't access the top 5 wide receiver chance, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because that particular player, right, is not going to be contributing in the most valuable way. So to give you an example, right, Stephon Diggs, he is a flex player or better 58% of the time, right? 11.6 is his top 5. Okay. But Jamar Chase also, what did I say? 56. Yeah. So Stephon Diggs is more likely to make your best ball lineup, but Jamar Chase 2.8 times more likely to get a top 5 week. That's what this data is saying from this season. So this is just from 2022. So that's why if we're picking next year between Chase and Diggs, and it's a coin flip in ADP, you've got to be going Jamar Chase. The upside is so there, because you can see the likes of an AJ Brown can get you 22.6 percent of the time in the flex. But actually, I really like AJ Brown. He's over 60% of the time of a flex play. That's really, really nice. CD Lamb was at 60% of the time. DeAndre Hopkins was at 57% of the time, right? One of the players I'm probably going to be avoiding a lot is Keenan Allen next year, because Keenan Allen only 4.6% of the time a top 5 wide receiver. 4.6. Right? When you're saying like there's only a round difference or 2 rounds difference, 3 rounds difference between Jamar Chase and Keenan Allen, sure, like, but you're losing access to a top possibility at a top 5 week. Because there are only, if we're going to sort this, there's only a limited amount of players who got anywhere remotely close to a top 5 week, right? I count 34 wide receivers had registered on my top 5 wide receiver percentage for a week. 35, only 35. So you're going to want to have them, come out to 100%. You want to be getting one of these per week. So if you can get a Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. But that's why the likes of an Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be so valuable for next year. That's why the Christian Watsons of the world are going to be so valuable next year, right? Chipping away at these wide receivers, especially these mid-round guys, like Mecole Hardman, 5% of the time. Like, you're just chipping away at extra 1 or 2 games where he could possibly get into that. That's why, Mecole Hardman is not going to be a bad pick, hopefully, if he finds the right ADP. But even so, you want to be able to access this upside. And you can replace Mecole Hardman's only 7.4% flex rate, right? You can replace him anywhere, right? Jerry Jeudy got 22. Hopkins got 29. Flex plays don't really win you anything because it's only 12 points, 12 and a half points. 22.7 points. That's irreplaceable. That is irreplaceable. Which makes Michael Thomas very difficult. It makes Michael Thomas very difficult. Because in the past, we've seen Michael Thomas get into that 30% range in that top 5 weeks. We don't know what that situation looks like. But we saw in the 3 games he played, almost 70% flex rate. Right? He had 2 games of the 3 where he was a flex player better in half PPR. So that's what I'm thinking about as we're going forward. These are players like you want to throw a Devontae Parker in. into your drafts here and there. It's a little disappointing to see T. Higgins not be able to access upside. I don't think I want a lot of T. Higgins this next year, even in the third round, right? I'd let someone else try to get him, because if it's going to be a Cincinnati wide receiver, and this is data that, the one I'm showing here on the screen is data from this year. But even if you look at data from last year, Jamar Chase, 20 to 30% top 5 rate is going to be massive compared to, if there's, Tyler Boyd had a higher top 5 rate than T. Higgins, right? T. Higgins is a solid back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. Fine. And if you want to draft him in round 4, I think that's going to be a fine spot for him. But I don't think he's going to fall to round 4. I think that's where he needs to be considered, though. He only made your best ball lineup not even 40% of the time. Based on, if you wanted to win, here's the way I think about it. If you want to win, you need 150 half PPR points from your starters every week. You need, where's my sheet? You need nearly 25 fantasy points from your quarterbacks. You need 23 fantasy points from your top wide receiver or running back. You need 18.5 from your top 10 running back. You need 22.7 from your top wide receiver. You need 19 from your top 10 wide receiver, your wide receiver 2. You need 15.2 from your third wide receiver. And then you need, 14.2 from your tight end. Now, the tight end one is lower priority because it's really, really hard for you to be able to say, okay, I need 18.75 from each position, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to get 18.75 from tight end every week. You need Travis Kelce there. So if you don't go Travis Kelce, you're going to have to punt, and there's no reason for you to be trying to access, these impossible tight end rates. Okay. Looking at the difference between Kelce and just the next tight end, it's Kelce at 57.3% of the time being a top 5 tight end. And that's 14.2 half PPR fantasy points. Kittle and Andrews, clear second tier. If you were to add up Kittle and Andrews' rates, they would get to be about Kelce's rate. And this is what I warned about last year. This is why I was higher than almost everybody on Kelce, not in being the tight end 1, but that Kelce was also going to be one of the best ball plays. And he was just a difference maker when it came to the tier difference. Last year, Travis Kelce was at about 60% of the time he was a top 5 tight end. And then it was Mark Andrews at about 40%, 42%. Andrews drops down to 29, 30%. Fine. It's still Kelce. Kelce is king. And that's why, looking at these points per game, Dalton Schultz at 7, Kmet at 7, Hawkinson at 10, you're already, unless you have Kelce, you're already at a loss for what you need from your tight end. So literally just punt tight end. Do not take, if you get a value on Kittle or Andrews, fine. But you are not taking Kittle or Andrews at ADP probably. And you are just waiting, because Cole Kmet came late. And he ended up being what? 5th among tight ends in top 5 rate? 5th. Hawkinson, tied for 5th, right? But then Juwan Johnson, 7th. Juwan Johnson, super late. David Njoku, super late. Taysom Hill, super late. We're talking in the top 10 of tight ends. And and Ingram was late too. 2, 3, 4. 4 of the top 10, nearly half of the top 10 tight ends who had rates, the 10 highest rates of getting a top 5 tight end week, ended up being super late picks. Just really athletic tight ends. So here's my recommendation. This is something that, we're going to be drafting a lot this offseason. You've got to punt tight end if you do not in best ball. You got to punt tight end if you do not get Kelsey, because Kelsey is the only one that's plus EV when it comes to looking at the data here. Okay. So yeah, anybody and their mother pretty much can be a flex play, but the priority weight is just going to be so much higher for quarterbacks. And that's why in my previous video, I talked really heavily about the importance of quarterback. Like, you need 25 fantasy points from your quarterback. You need 25. And if you don't get 25 from your quarterback and you end up getting 18, for instance, then you're already a loss of 7 from your path to 150. Okay. So you need to be aiming for 150 points or more every week in these half point. And that should be driving you. Okay. What type of player am I getting? What is the probability that they hit in what I need? And then what is the sum probabilities of it? So I'm going to be looking back on some of the underdog teams that I drafted, and then I'll do a self-analysis. One of the things this offseason I'm going to do is a self-analysis of, okay, did I get a top 5 tight end this week? Check or no check. Did I get a top 5 running back this week? Check or no check. Top 10 running back? Check or no check. Same thing with the wide receivers and tight end and flex play. And then I'll start to notice a pattern, and that's going to inform me on my own drafting for especially teams and leagues where, each week I'm going to evaluate, did I get to 150 or not this week? If I didn't get to 150, then why was that? Well, it was primarily because this didn't work. This failed. My flex bottomed out. Well, maybe I need to be taking more secure flex plays and not taking so many zeros. Maybe I need to be taking, higher upside quarterbacks. Maybe I need to be stacking my players, that are have upside. So for instance, I've hit on a few of these already, but the highest rate of a top 5 week is Jalen Hurts. And that's really significant. 56% of the time, he was the only quarterback to score 24.9 fantasy points or more than 50% of the time. Mahomes and Allen, 44 and 43%. So very, very close in the same tier. And then it drops down. So it's clear Hurts tier, and then Mahomes and Allen. And then it becomes Lawrence Burrow in a tier. And then the Goff Wentz's of the world. Funny as it sounds, like Carson Wentz, fantasy intrigue, right? He can throw the ball to Jahan Dotson. Like, if Wentz somehow gets a starting job again, that might be interesting depending upon the weapons. Because Wentz had Samuel, he had McLaurin, he had Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson. And then a clear tier of Fields and Jackson, and then Murray unfortunately tore his ACL. But one of the things I want to point out as well is Tua, 15.3% of the time a top 5 quarterback, 32% of the time a top 10 quarterback, and top 10 quarterbacks aren't as valuable, right? That's like 18, 19 points, maybe 20 points. If you want 18.9 fantasy points, 19 fantasy points. The difference between being a top 5 quarterback and being a top 10 quarterback is massive. In fact, it's about 6 fantasy points. You should not be drafting your quarterback to be he's going to get me a back-end quarterback 1 week. He's going to give me some Kirk Cousins weeks and Matt Stafford weeks. Like, no. Like, we need to be targeting the upside quarterbacks. That's one of the things I want to take away, is that if you are without an upside, you need to be drafting an upside quarterback in these best ball tournaments. In redraft and season-long leagues, like JJ Zacharyson is right. like you probably can get away with more of those late round quarterbacks. That makes sense because you can stream, you can pick up waivers. But if you can't stream and you can't pick up waivers, why are you not going after the players that score on average the most points if they're the top 5 of their position? So Jalen Hurts leads that pack. And if you don't get a Hurts, Mahomes, or Allen, you're going to need to double up essentially a Lawrence and Burrow to be able to match the rate at which other teams who have Hurts, Mahomes, or Allen are going to be getting 25 fantasy points into their starting lineup. And you're coming back and saying, well, what is the difference really between, 6 points? 6 points is massive. That's a 4% drop automatically for you to be able to get to your path of 150. You need to make that up somewhere in your 4 points. Are you going to make it up from your running back or your wide receivers? You're hoping that your flex play can, that the flex play is assuming that you've already met your wide receiver and running back thresholds, right? So that's why you need to be going after this top 5 quarterback. It scores twice as many than what your flex play you need from your flex play. So there we go. So I've gone through each of these, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, and tight ends. I'm going to keep doing this throughout the season. I will revisit this particular sheet. I'm going to be doing more research for you and talking through my thoughts on how we should approach, in particular, underdog drafts moving forward. We're going to talk about some ADPs once I get access to some of the ADP data, and we'll go through that. So I appreciate all of you tuning in. This is a lot of fun for me. I want to, get some product out to you as well. So over the course of the next couple of months, I'm going to be getting together a player profile booklet and document that'll help with this best ball value rating. We'll talk about best ball points added from the previous year, best ball points added per game, the rate at which particular players met that top 5, top 10, and flex play thresholds. And of course, looking at what kind of value can these players bring to your team. And because of that, what strategy are we going to take? Are there going to be voids in drafts for next year based on ADP because of what we know about these players? Right. And also, like, are we going to be able to get some Breece Hall? Right. I'm really going to be monitoring Breece Hall very closely because Breece Hall was a player who in 2/3 of his games, 67% of his games, he was at least a flex play. And I think that's going to go up. And if he's as healthy as Saquon Barkley was last year before Barkley sprained his ankle, chef's kiss. Look, I don't know exactly where Breece Hall is going. I can find out here in a second. But ultimately, like, I am in on seeing if I can get any discount at all on Breece Hall. I'm looking up the way too early ADPs right now. And Breece Hall right now is RB9. Ooh, that's very high. I'm hoping that drops once ACL news comes out again, because that cycle, I think, has been lost. But I like Breece Hall. 67% of the time, that's just a little less than Eckler, a little bit less than Barkley. That's higher than Chubb was, way higher than Josh Jacobs, and then way higher than Tony Pollard. So there we go. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. This is a lot of fun. And, if you haven't joined in on Drafters, make sure you use the promo code BEST. It's a lot of fun drafting on Drafters. I'm going to continue to do research. This And yeah, this is great. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.